What do you think has changed in retail merchandising over the years? Do you think we've gotten high tech has really made a difference in how stores are merchandised and displayed? Well, I want to show you a video that I did quite a few years ago in an interview where I'm being asked about merchandising and display. And I want you to listen to it and let me know if you think anything has changed or if we're still in the same place, because that's why I'm still here and helping merchants everywhere, especially small independent merchants, to do the best in their stores that they can and to attract more attention and make the shopping experience more exciting. And by doing that, you don't only appeal to the local people coming in regularly, but you're going to keep a lot of people from shopping online because they'd rather be in a real store, and the statistics prove that. At the end of the video, I am going to show you how to get a copy of my book that sold over 5,000 copies and was always sold out at trade shows, especially when I was on the platform giving merchandising and display seminars. So sit back and watch. I'm a Four Seasons girl, old but good, and it's Linda McKendry.
Hello, we're with Linda McKendry of VMP Consulting Limited. Hi Linda, how are you?
I'm fine, Yvonne.
What does VMP mean?
VMP stands for Visual Merchandising Presentation. This is a term, VMP is a term used in the industry where merchandisers are working together. It's not a term that's commonly used, but I decided to make it a term that would be more commonly used amongst merchants who want to get into merchandising.
Linda, what kind of work do you do?
Essentially, we do consulting, instructing, and public speaking in the science and art of merchandising and display. In addition to that, there's writing that happens, preparing merchandisers for people, doing prototypes, evaluating stores. Different things come under different categories depending on the service that the client is looking for, asking for.
What changes have you noticed in retail and wholesale?
What we're seeing in retail, firstly, is the amount of competition that they're feeling, the pressure from internet selling, selling online, catalog sales, direct order sales. Things like that are taking the bricks and mortar idea of retailing and making a lot of retailers feel very insecure. What I tend to tell them is that they have to remember that there is no such thing as a transponder that's going to turn product that's seen on a screen or in a catalog into reality. All of those companies still have money-back guarantees because they know that once the customer sees it, touches it, feels it, they have to have an opportunity to send it back if they're not happy with it. In the bricks and mortar experience, the customer comes in, they can see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, if it has a fragrance. And so this is where the retailer still has an advantage over those other types of marketing.
What would you say is the number one problem in merchandising and why?
The number one problem in merchandising has always been what I call either rise and shine or light and height. In other words, putting the maximum amount of product in prime selling space, which is from waist to eye level, where the customers can see it and handle it more easily. The other thing is lighting. Light is life. So if products aren't lit properly, they have a tendency to look dull or dingy, or any of the finishes on them, the textures, is not visible. So some of the key features of a product a lot of times aren't being appreciated because the lighting isn't working.
Is there any trade or profession that you would like to send a strong message to where merchandising is concerned?
I would send a strong message to architects who are designing retail spaces to pay more attention to the lighting. An example of that would be putting plug-ins in the floor that are flush when they're not being used, so that a merchant can put an island display in the middle of an aisle and still have the lighting that they need there. Or, for example, these fountains that are popular right now, a small fountain that you can purchase that needs to be plugged in order to be operating. Well, retailers cannot have extension cords running all over their stores. So that's just one example of where an architect can make a difference in terms of the design of a retail space to make it better for the merchant.
Linda, what has been the most favorite project that you've enjoyed working on?
I think the project I enjoyed the most would be a small gift shop that was in a small community where it was beginning to look a lot like a secondhand store or flea market. The reason was because they were bringing in a lot of consignment materials on account of the fact that their sales weren't up enough to give them the money that they needed to purchase. They got together and they had me come down to do a little seminar and a little session for them to train them and give them some ideas on what they could do in their store. From that, they turned around, and after using the principles that I teach, their sales went up about 600% within the first 2 or 3 weeks because I called them back to find out how we had done. In some cases, because they were so limited in the product they had, we had to get out gift bags and tissue paper and do things that were filling up the shelves to make the store look really full of product and look interesting and attractive, but at the same time not having them spend any money because they didn't have any. The other thing that happened, which was really interesting, is one of the vendors came in and was actually prepared to repossess some of their product. Upon seeing all the changes that had been made in the store and the new atmosphere that was there, they not only didn't repossess, they increased their credit line and they were allowed to buy a whole lot more product to put in their store, and that essentially is what it took to get the ball rolling again for them. So I believe that in their case, the merchandising and the principles that I teach help them to stay into business and not have to go into bankruptcy.
Over the years, you've had a number of challenging experiences, I'm sure. Is there anyone that sticks out in your mind?
Sometimes it's even more challenging to work with a very large store where you have a lot of staff. The reason being that there are more people then that have their own ideas about how the merchandising should be. Often in a large store like a department store, you have people that have been there for a long time. They feel very possessive, have a sense of ownership over their department. They don't really appreciate someone coming in from the outside to tell them the changes that need to be made. The neat thing is that once we demonstrate the changes, they can then see how it increases the sales, it increases the selling experience, and then they are more motivated to make the changes that we need. But that really is challenging.
Following trends or fashion in the retail environment, is that critical?
I believe that in retail, especially where it comes to home decor, gift and tableware, linens and things like that, that they need to be fashion-minded. The thing is that even if you aren't in a fashion product, your store needs to be fashion-minded. If you don't reinvent yourself on a regular basis, your customers will start to take you for granted. This is sometimes as simple as painting your walls. If they were dark, make them light. If they were light, make them dark. If they had no color, put some color in them. The other thing is refurbishing your fixtures or even rearranging your store and moving things around. This is very, very helpful in maintaining a trendy fashion look, even if your product isn't necessarily a trendy fashion product.
Linda, I understand that you've done a number of gift shops for hospitals. Is this a very unique environment?
Hospital gift shops are also changing. They used to be where the little booties and bonnets were knitted up by the auxiliary ladies and were presented to or made available to the new moms and that kind of thing. But now gift shops are becoming the mainstay of revenue in helping hospitals to get some of the revenue that they need. As we have government cutbacks and other things happening, this is putting pressure on the hospital gift shop to become more professional, in which case they have to use some of the latest merchandising techniques as well. So that change is there. You're seeing it going from volunteers are still running the shop, but you're actually seeing paid personnel as buyers and managers in these stores.
So far we've spoken about the retail environment. How about the corporate aspect of your business?
That's an interesting question because a lot of large chains have their own merchandising people that work within the corporation. Interestingly, because my target audience are the MAPA operation, and because they recognize that, let's say a drugstore, for example, they recognize that because that drugstore is still operating in a community, that it needs to operate like a MAPA operation. It has to have a similar feel and a characteristic to it in order for it to appear that the personalized service is still being offered. So many times I'm called on to train the staff and the managers in merchandising systems that apply to the local community and to targeting the local area with the products that sell in that area may not sell in another area, and this is where the merchandising techniques come into play.
Linda, I know you've worked with business associations. Exactly what is it that you do for them?
Business associations are wonderful because they can all get together. I'm like a lot of people where my service is concerned. Those who need it don't want it. Those who want it can't afford it. So a lot of times when you get a group of businesses together as in a downtown business association, they can then pool their resources, sell tickets, however they want to do it, and then they have me come in and do a seminar for the whole group and for the whole town. This has been known to actually change the whole, almost like a sense of morale in a shopping community and make it better for the whole area.
Linda, has any segment of the government been interested in your work and service?
That's another good question. You would wonder about that. We have rural economic development and we have tourism. So wherever tourism is the primary source of income, such as in Prince Edward Island, they're very dependent on their summer tourism. I wrote an article once called Treasures for Tourists in the Gift and Tableware magazine. As a result of that, the PEI government people picked up on that and asked me to come out and give seminars to their rural economic development, artisans, and tourist people because of the critical factor in the amount of revenue that comes into a province as a result of tourism. And they recognized that merchandising was a key role in doing that.
I understand you're a writer. Can you elaborate on that for me?
I've written more articles in more magazines than I don't even keep track anymore. It's ranged as far as doing magazines in Australia. They picked up on some of the articles that I had written. I've written lots of magazines in the States, and of course a lot of magazines. Industry trade journals is really what we call them here in Canada. It has resulted in business, but more than that, it's resulted in the readers having information, vital merchandising and display information that they need from issue to issue.
Have you done any work internationally?
I had an opportunity to work in the States, and of course 9/11 and a few things like that made it less easy or more difficult to go through. But it's been fun to do the stationery show in New York and the gift shows in LA, and I've done the show in Atlanta. As a result of the show in Atlanta, I was given a contract to do a store in Boise, Idaho, and so it's just the doors do tend to open up. And yes, I've worked in the States but not offshore.
Do you have a key piece of advice to merchants?
My advice for merchants today is to keep everything fresh. It's amazing how you can move things around in your store, and something that a customer who comes in daily or weekly has seen suddenly looks new and fresh because you've put it in a different place, you've put it cross-merchandised with different products, you've put the lighting on it differently. Any number of factors can contribute to that it looks new, it looks different, it looks fresh. Never, never let your products look stale. Never keep a display more than 3 to 4 weeks, especially window display.
I've just noticed that you've written a book. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
The book was specially designed for retailers. The original manuscript was about 100 pages long. It was edited down to 40 pages. The reason is because when we did our market testing, we found that most retailers don't have time to read a book like that looks like a textbook. They often said, if I have time to read the book, I'd have time to take a course. So what we did is we redid the book in such a way it's more like a flip chart, and you're reading one page at a time, where each page, as you fold it over, covers one topic. This enables a merchant to be able to read a page at a time and develop that information in their store immediately. It also enables them to have a roundtable discussion with their staff, and they can flip through the book and talk about the items and the information that's on there. The book has been very, very well received. As a matter of fact, I sold a copy of it. I didn't sell. My agent in the States sold a copy at the Phoenix souvenir show. And the lady that bought it had 12 retail shops in Barbados. And as a result of getting my book, she contacted me and consulted with me, and that has been also gotten a lot of other business through a lot of other avenues. So I do know from the response that we get that the book is working.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks for having me, Yvonne.
We've been speaking to Linda McKendry from VMP Consulting.
So what did you think of that? And here's the book. And you just have to go to todaysdisplays.com, scroll all the way down, and you'll see a link that takes you right to this book and to the other one that is for fashion and accessories. I know that you will enjoy it. Nothing has changed. This has not been updated or edited because it doesn't have to be. Everything in there, and the people that have bought my book over the years, they absolutely love it. They use it for training staff. When they get someone new, they give it to them and say, please read this book. And so I'm really happy to be able to offer it even all these years later, because it's still old but good, just like me. So we'll talk to you later. Bye.